can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Jumbo and caught! Jumbo Elliott! One-handed catch! Chris Paul gets running loose. Reavis can't wait.
Trevor, here we are.
Yes.
Another combine, 2026. We're in the Hoosier State. You know what I was
It is the Hoosier State now. It has to be.
You know what? That's what I was thinking about this morning, that how unlikely that national championship of Indiana was.
It was so much fun to watch, honestly, because as just a fan of college football, like I went to the University of Florida, and so
I went to grad school there.
Okay, there we go. Go
We're all Gators.
Go Gators. So like obviously like I care about Florida and everything, but like I love college football just independently. Like it's so much fun. Obviously the scouting part of it is fun to watch a lot of these guys play really well, and to have a team like Indiana, which is seen as just this, it's unthinkable that they could be this good. It's unthinkable that they could win a national championship. That's awesome. Like I know there's been a lot of talk of, we should go back to the BCS system. It was better with 4. Are they going to expand the playoff to 24? This year was awesome. Whatever this year was, for us to get to the point where Indiana was able to play the way that they were, and I feel like the regular season was as fun as it was with a lot of teams that were kind of into it. It was a blast, man. It was a blast to watch a coach come from the lower levels of James Madison, where Curt Cignetti was, and get to Indiana and just attract and recruit the right players, the right teammates. That was it. The cool part about Indiana is it really did feel like a team win all around. And there's some prospects and some guys on their team both the last couple of years have been great, but I loved it. As you can tell, I was such a big fan of watching it and watching their success.
So great transition here, because last night you tweeted D'Angelo Pons scouting report done for over an hour. I just keep clicking on the next game. An absolute joy to watch. A mother trucking dog.
Yes.
And a football player would pound the table for.
I love D'Angelo Pons. And to me, he is such a great example of the whole Curt Cignetti ecosystem, where you get these guys that were 0 stars, 2 stars, 3 stars, whatever it is, some lightly recruited players where he goes, no. Hey, if you're going to play your butt off, if you're going to play with a lot of passion, a lot of fire, whatever your position is, if your work ethic's going to be there, I'm going to recruit you. I'm going to give you a chance. And Pons is somebody who, he's undersized, right? He's 5'9", 170 pounds, coming out of Hollywood, Florida. And he was a 3-star guy, but he gets to James Madison. He starts right away at James Madison. He started for 2 years when he was at James Madison, followed Cignetti over to Indiana, and then he started at Indiana, and it just plays with such a big chip on his shoulder, but he plays with so much passion, so much pride. One of the games I was watching that I was referencing was actually that national championship game against Miami. Yeah. And you look at a guy who's 5'9", 170 pounds. He's laying the hammer on some of these wide receivers when he had the opportunity to, and it's like, that's that mentality that is so infectious to the rest of the team. And when you have a team full of players that want to do stuff like that, Pons is an embodiment of why Indiana won the national championship, for how fun he is to see.
All right, this is the official New York Jets podcast. It's not the University of Indiana or Indiana University podcast. But with that being said, how many draftable players on that national championship team, you think?
Wow. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10?
Okay.
We might get, I think we'll get 10 guys. Now, a couple of them maybe went back to school, so maybe it might be right under 10, but I think we're getting around where double digits is for Indiana to get drafted this year.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, because the number 1 overall pick in this draft.
Fernando Mendoza.
Right.
Yeah.
So are the Jets.
Yes.
Can we talk about their landscape a little bit?
Sure.
2026, you got 4 picks in the top 44. You have 2 first-round picks. You got the number 2 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
You're sitting there at number 16 overall from that trade with the Colts.
Yep.
The Sauce Gardner.
Yep.
But also 2027, now you have 3 first-round picks as well.
Yeah.
And you have to build this thing.
Sure.
So how do you approach this draft knowing that, okay, we do have very good capital in the future as well?
Yeah. I think the Jets roster has a lot of work to do, and I think a lot of people out there would believe that. I know the front office probably thinks that as well, because that's why you trade the players that you do to acquire the picks that you get, because you know that you have a lot of pieces that you have to build. But all that to say, outside of them having a franchise quarterback, which they're still searching for, they're in a pretty decent spot. They've got a couple of stars here and there, but then specifically, I love the way their offensive line is configured right now. It's one of the better, in theory, offensive lines in the league. We'll have to see what happens with free agency, but if you tell me that as a building block for this team, the offensive line and a lot of the studs on the offensive line, specifically the guys at the tackle spots, you feel good about. You got a star at wide receiver, obviously, and you've got 4 picks in the top 100 this year, 3 first-round picks the following year. That's pretty ideal when it comes to team building and what you want to do with this roster moving forward, especially for a coaching staff that is still new. So I think that the big question with all of this, having all of these picks, is the quarterback position, right? How do you go about that? You just mentioned Fernando Mendoza is going to go number 1 overall. You missed out on him by 1 selection with the Jets sitting there right behind him at number 2. But then it comes down to like, okay, well, this doesn't seem like the strongest quarterback class, but there are some guys that could be intriguing, right? Do you go for a Ty Simpson? Do you go for a Garrett Nussmeier, right? Do you put those guys into the conversation? Do you say, hey, we'd consider one of these guys at 16? Or do you say, hey, we wouldn't consider these guys until the second round. If they get there, maybe we'll have a conversation. But those 3 first-round picks the following year, I know this is dangerous. The grass is always greener. I'm a draft guy. I'm always looking ahead. I get it. But next year's quarterback class could be something that's really, really good. And even if the Jets are quite a bit better next season, you have draft capital and ammunition to potentially be able to move up if that quarterback that you really want is there, if you don't go for one this year. So that's the big conversation that you have to that's the big question that you have to answer is, what's the value essentially that you put on guys like Ty Simpson and Garrett Nussmeier to where you go, okay, not only are we comfortable of where we're going to pick them this year, we're also comfortable picking them knowing that probably means we're not going to take a quarterback the following year because it'd be a little bit of a waste of assets, although not the worst thing in the world because you're throwing darts at the dartboard for a quarterback, but you know what I'm saying.
Do you ultimately bring in a veteran?
Yeah.
And then draft one regardless? I mean, like you were talking about, here's what I'm going over in my head. If you have a second-round grade on Simpson, do you take him at 16 overall, or you say that because this is a quarterback-driven league, there could be teams trying to get back in the first round. Let's just say he's there in the teens and the early 20s and things like that. Or do you wait and just continue to build because you have some of these things in your back pocket?
Yeah, I think it's a multi-layered team-building question because when you look at this team, drafting a franchise quarterback or just a quarterback at all that you think could be a franchise guy for you, some people think like, oh, we've got him, the work is done. The work is just beginning when you select them, right? And so, like I said,
Jets fans know that better than anybody.
It's a good thing that they have the offensive line in place that you feel good about. But the issue with Simpson and, say, viewing him as a second-round pick, if you viewed him as a second-round pick, you would view him as somebody where you go, okay, this guy could be a really good starter at the NFL level, maybe even more than that. But for some reason, you believe that it's not this surefire start right away, you feel great about it type of a quarterback, if there ever is such a thing, right, in this league. So with that being said, your grade of him could be a second-round pick, but that also means that you've got to be patient with him. So most likely, he's not going to light the world on fire for you the next season, especially when you look at his supporting cast. Garrett Wilson, phenomenal. I'm an A.D. Mitchell guy. I like A.D. Mitchell a lot, but there's work to be done there when it comes to the pass catchers and the long-term future of that, getting more guys on the roster. What happens in free agency with the running back position as well? How well the running back, or how well the run game can complement Simpson. So I think the bigger issue with drafting Ty Simpson or Garrett Nussmeier or whatever isn't necessarily that the film grade that you might have on them. It's, does that timeline give you the ability to have a definitive answer on this player going into next draft season when you have those 3 first-round picks? Because what happens if you go, well, yeah, I mean, like, Ty had an okay year, and we think that he could be good moving forward. But now you start to have the question is like, all right, well, is okay good enough? Or are we really trying to move up and get aggressive in that 2027 class? So that's just, the Jets are just in such a fascinating spot that they have to sort of come to the conclusion of what they would be comfortable with, not only the round value, the grade, where you would take them in this year, but then also the timeline of where the team would be and the realistic progression that you could expect to see from Simpson or Nussmeier or whoever it is to give you a definitive answer going into 2027.
All right, so we're going to talk to you next week. You're going to be on our draft show Now Boarding. So we're at the onset of the
Great name, by the way.
Thank you.
Great name for a show. Great name for a segment.
We got to give our props to Katie over here.
Katie,
yes,
unbelievable.
Nice job,
Very
Katie.
good job. Love it.
You have done a fantastic job throughout the year as far as covering the draft, like you always do. You're the lead NFL draft analyst over at Pro Football Focus. We're listening to your draft show, NFL SE show. And then it's at Tampa Bay Trey. 7 players who need a good combine. I thought we should get into this right now.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Out of those 7, how about a couple Jets fans should really pay attention to?
So, like, Jonah Coleman's one of them. I think Jonah Coleman, the running back from Washington, is somebody to think about just because, okay, like, depending on what happens with Breece Hall, I know you got other running backs in the building, but do you feel really great about them being the workhorses for you moving forward? Jonah Coleman, I said this yesterday to a good friend of mine, Ben Solak, who works for ESPN. Yeah. I was saying, Jonah Coleman feels like the most forgotten good player in this draft class. Like, it feels as though 2 years ago, and even last summer, people were just like, oh, yeah, Jonah Coleman's really good. Like, top 50, top 60 type of a potential player. Like, he's really good. And now nobody talks about him. Yeah. It's just like he's the most forgotten good player because he's not a superstar. I feel like he's just not making headlines, but he's been so steady. And there's a metric that we have at PFF that I love to lean on when it comes to running backs. It's more of a stable metric. And when we call something a stable metric, it's basically saying we see a lot of players do this in college and then also do it in the pro. So that's what makes it stable of a metric. And that is missed tackles forced per attempt. So how often you are making a player miss, whether it's agility or even lower in the shoulder and breaking a tackle, per attempt that you have. Jonah Coleman's got I believe it's an 89th or 90th percentile missed tackles forced per attempt averages for a large sample size over the last 2 years. So he's just really good, and he's really consistent, really great with yards after contact as well. So he's a player that I think is somebody that has to have a good combine simply because he doesn't have that long speed. He's more of a Kyron Williams, Isaiah Pacheco, Tyler Algier type of player. And I just named 3 good, productive running backs at the NFL level, guys that really help complement offenses. But, some people go, he's not Saquon. He's not Christian McCaffrey. We don't care. And I think that's too far. But that's one of the players that I think really has to have a good combine that the Jets could potentially be interested in.
How about we're going to have to see what the Jets do schematically. Aaron Klein is going to go to the podium here Tuesday in Indy. How about Peter Woods out of Clemson?
Sure, yeah.
Defensive tackle.
Yeah, definitely. And Peter Woods is somebody who, Jets fans and the Jets specifically are going to keep an eye on because I think he's an option for them. I don't think he's an option for them at 2. If they trade down from 2, anything could happen. No. But I think he's much more of a realistic option for them at 16 because certainly with Quinnen Williams no longer on the defensive line, you need a presence in there. You're going to need somebody along the interior defensive line. Caden McDonald from Ohio State is somebody who's been linked to the Jets a lot as well. Lee Hunter, potentially the defensive tackle from Texas Tech. But Peter Woods is another name to know. And this is a former 5-star recruit, one of the highest recruits in his recruiting class, started right away at Clemson. He's listed about 6'3", 6'4", and he's just over 300 pounds, 305, 310 pounds. I'm not sure what he's going to measure in at here, but essentially those first 2 years, freshman and sophomore years, he played really well and he showed really good flashes, the explosiveness, the athletic ability, all of that from him looked really, really good. And then this past year, it was a down year for Clemson and really all of their really good prospects. And so you go, okay, what was going on here? Why was there? It felt like there was just not that passion, that fire, that motivation for a lot of those Clemson guys. Like TJ Parker's one of them, Avion Terrell's another one, but Peter Woods, certainly his grades and his impact were less this year. But a big reason why is because they put him more as that like nose tackle type of a player instead of really rotating him around, letting him pin his ears back, get after the quarterback, because we have 2 different ways to grade pass rushing at PFF. One of them is regular pass rush grades. You're taking all snaps and pass rushing snaps into account. And the other one is pass rushing grade versus true pass sets, which is a true drop back. It's not a quick screen. It's not an RPO. It's a true drop back situation. And Peter Woods' pass rush grade on true pass sets, even just this year, was 6 or 7 points higher than what it was just regularly with all pass rush snaps. So that tells me that there are specific snaps where they are telling him, hey, buddy, go get after the quarterback. And those are the ones where he actually has a really big impact. So he was seen as a potential top 10 prospect going into this year.
Yeah.
His play didn't necessarily live up to it, but I think the potential is still there for him. And so I think he could very well be a top 10 overall player in this class. And if you get him at 16, I think that's a great fit for the Jets.
Well, since we're both Gators, I got to ask you about Caleb X.
Yeah.
He went out there in Mobile. He had a really good week.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, injury-plagued season.
Yeah.
What do you make of him? Because he's a physical specimen.
And he is the player who, depending on what he does here at Combine Week and certainly what we saw at the Senior Bowl, he is somebody who I think could get a lot of love as that first defensive tackle off the board. I think that his range starts as high as 9 to the Chiefs.
Wow.
I really do think that because, dude, he's 6'6", 330 pounds, and he gets off the ball like he's 40 pounds lighter.
I know, a human being shouldn't move like that.
That is length and size and explosiveness that you just cannot teach. The weight-adjusted athleticism and explosiveness that this guy has is really, really good. You worry about some of the durability, why he wasn't on the field this year, that foot injury. So all that stuff's got to check out. And he's not super consistent right now, but that is one of those players that maybe if you're the Jets, you look at the fact that, hey, we got 4 picks in the top 100. We got 3 first-round picks next year. We can afford to take a swing on a player who might be one of the most disruptive DTs in the NFL. He could potentially evolve into that. That he's got to round out the consistency. He's got to stay on the field. But, again, they don't make many of them the way that he is built. And I think that teams are going to gravitate towards that in this draft.
That's really good, Trevor. You said, hey, potentially this guy could come here, knock it out of the park, and be a top 10 pick.
He could. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
All right, so tight end, Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. I don't know if the Jets are going to go early tight end because
Probably not,
they did
right?
last year.
Yeah.
But what do you make of Sadiq?
So the potential is through the roof, right? The things that I'm going to say, I feel like a lot of people have been saying for a while. Like the potential's through the roof. I think he is a freak athletically. Strength-wise, explosiveness-wise. Whatever drill that he does this week, I think he's going to put on an absolute show.
Yeah.
He is a total freak athlete for the position, and it's a league that we're seeing lean into the versatility of the tight end spot more and more and more the further we get. A lot of teams are just like 5 or 6 years ago when defenses started to really have nickel as their base, play more nickel than anything else because of how customizable it was. You're seeing a lot of teams now play 12 personnel consistently because of everything that you could do with it. Because you got a lot of tight ends that are truly receivers or blockers on any play, so you could do a lot of different things with it. A guy like Kenyon Sadiq unlocks that ability for you. Now, I don't think he's as natural as a receiver as you would want him to be for like a top 20 overall pick at tight end. But the potential is there for him to be that. He is that athlete at tight end. He blocks very well, even pound for pound at his size. It's just a matter of he just wasn't super explosive as a receiver, but you kind of go, was that an Oregon thing? Did they not really have him as a focal point of the passing attack? I would have thought that he would have been, but he is somebody who he's going to get drafted in the first round, and that's going to be a lock after this week when we see him test and everything. But it is something where I did want to see a little bit more from him as a receiver this year.
All right, let's end here because you got a big week ahead, and we're going to circle back with you after the Combine. Simpson, he is throwing this week.
Compete.
This is what we've heard.
Compete, baby.
We're going to talk about it, but what do you think the headline is going to be on him by this weekend?
I think it's I'm a joke, but I think it kind of is going to be that. Yeah. I think it's going to be that hey, Ty Simpson came out here and competed, and outside of Fernando Mendoza, who's not going to throw because there's no need for him to throw, he was somebody who wanted to come out here and compete. And I like Ty Simpson. I really do. He is my tight end. He is my my quarterback too that I have in this class. And the reason why is because even though there's inconsistencies there with him, he does a lot of the to quote one of my good friends, Nate Tice, the quarterbacky things very well, where that's like making protection calls at the line of scrimmage, getting to backside digs on route concepts and progressions, hanging tough in the pocket, consistently throwing over the intermediate middle of the field. No quarterback in this entire class, including Fernando Mendoza, had more success throwing over the intermediate middle of the field, which is a very key part of the field that you have to unlock if you are an NFL quarterback to have consistent success. Nobody did it more often or better than Ty Simpson in this class. And so there are those things where, is he a finished product? Is he going to struggle if he starts year one? Yeah, a little bit here and there, but there's also plenty of things that we saw from his first year tape at Alabama that make you feel good about what he could be someday at the NFL level. So yeah, him throwing, I think, is just him once again kind of showcasing to NFL teams like, hey, I'm here to compete. I'm here to get better. This is my work ethic. This is who I am. And I always like when guys come out here and compete. I really do. Because teams aren't going to kill you for having a bad throwing session here at the Combine. They're really not. I truly think you getting out there and throwing means more than most of the days that you could have for a lot of these prospects anyways when it comes to the throws.
Tampa Bay, Trey, you got to be following him throughout the week. Then we're going to circle back with him and see what he found out here in Indianapolis. Great seeing you. Go Gators.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you. I'm excited for next week.
Thanks, brother. All right, we're joined in Indy by the great Dane Brugler. Where are you as far as the Beast is concerned, percentage-wise?
I'm probably in a good spot, but I don't let myself feel that way because there's just so much more to do. It's most of the work is done at this point. Like, it's not like there's more games to be played. It's just a matter of getting all of the notes in a good place for the report and getting some of those last-minute background information nuggets, and that's a big thing here at the Combine. Not only talking to players, but talking to scouts, talking to coaches, talking to agents, talking to basically anybody that I can get a meeting with. And so I've been here for 4 days already, setting up meetings, meeting with people, whether it's coffee here, lunch there, meet up on the street there, and it's just there's so much to gather in this week for my purposes that eventually goes into the Beast that it's really beneficial.
What is a day like for Dane Brugler here in Indy? Once the prospects start talking like they are going to do Wednesday, we're taping Tuesday.
Well, I mean, I woke up today. I was like, I get to talk to the Jets today. It's perfect. I can't wait. No, but today's a lot of interviews. It's one after the other, and it's which is, hey, I'm not gonna be upset if you want to talk to me. I want to talk about the draft in July, and no one wants to talk to me. So I got to take advantage of it now. But it's when the players get to the podium, it's a good opportunity to talk with them. The big name guys, it's the crowds, the swarm around them. It makes it impossible to really get the information that I want to get from them, especially when, no disrespect to beat writers and people, but I'm just so tired of hearing, have you met with this team? Have you met with like they're meeting with everybody. Let's ask some better questions than that. But I like to talk to maybe the late round guys or the under the radar guys who maybe I haven't seen at the Senior Bowl, or I didn't get to see them at the Shrine Bowl, or I didn't get the chance to talk to them during the season. And so it's more about the finishing touches rather than, I need to talk to Jeremiah Love, because that evaluation's done. That background's done. Most of the first round, second round, third round guys, those are all done. It's more of the day 3 players at this point. All
right, so you got to be reading Dane on The Athletic. You just published something that I really enjoyed. 21 prospects you can't wait to see at the NFL Combine. One of those guys was a quarterback from Alabama, Ty Simpson. I know Jets fans are intrigued by him. Let's say that. What do you want to see from Ty Simpson here?
It's a big opportunity. As we know Fernando Mendoza, who's going to be the number 1 overall pick. We know he's not going to be throwing or working out here, and understand why. But so this is a big opportunity for Ty to kind of go out and put his best foot forward. The biggest knock with him is going to be the 15 starts. The track record of quarterbacks in the NFL, just like say the last 15 years. I think there's 3 quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round that had fewer than 15 starts, and it's Anthony Richardson, Mitchell Trubisky, Dwayne Haskins, 3 guys that just haven't panned out. And so there's just no substitute for that experience. And so that is the uphill climb that Ty Simpson has to say, like, look, I'm a little bit different. And I think he is a little bit different because his dad's a 20-year head coach at the FCS level. So he grew up in this. He's been getting that quarterback education since the age of 5. And it's all plays out on the field. And so Ty Simpson, the first 2 months looked really good this year at Alabama. And then November, things started to fall apart a little bit. Not all on him. The running game was non-existent. The blocking was not good. The receivers weren't giving him a ton of help. So it was, we think of quarterback as this superpower position. You had to be the superhero to do everything, but you're totally dependent on everything around you. And at Alabama, I think he just didn't get a ton of help from his supporting cast, which is as much of the conversation about anything with him specifically. But I want to see the verified measurements. How big are you? He's not a bigger player, and so is he at least over? How close to 210 are you? Or are you at least over 205? Are you 212? I want to see how big you are, and then not that throwing in shirts and shorts out on the field is that big of a qualifier to how good of a quarterback you are, but it's still, I want to see how does the ball pop off your hand? How are you able to place the ball in the right spot to guys you've never thrown to before, which is always a challenge. But this is a big opportunity for Ty to just kind of put his best foot forward and show, because I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 13th. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes 53rd. I don't think that he's a lock first-round pick. I think there's a better chance he goes first round than second round, but I wouldn't call him a lock at this point. Really talented player that there's still some things about his profile that gives you a little bit of pause.
We'll have to see what happens once the league year commences as far as free agents is concerned, because the Jets have a lot of financial flexibility. We know that. But do you like the thought of just building, because the Jets have several holes, just building there, maybe taking a project down the line at the quarterback position in this draft, and then we'll have to see how it plays out once he gets to 27?
I think that might be their best option. Yeah. It's just you have to take your medicine, and that's tough. We saw this team go the free agent route last year, obviously, with Justin Fields, and how things played out. And so, there's just not many options. And so the best course might be to, hey, let's take our lumps, and we don't feel great that we're going to get the quarterback position figured out right now. But, hey, we feel really good about this receiver we're adding. Yeah. We feel really good about this guard that we're able to add to the roster. We feel really good about this corner. And so, while I think it'd be, the goal, obviously, to address everything in one offseason, it's just not realistic. Not realistic, right. It's not, even with the draft capital they have. Yeah. So I think that especially a quarterback. So I think that it's you just have to be realistic about where this team can go and plan accordingly. Because every decision they make this offseason will be tied to the decisions that they're going to make next offseason. This is like a 2-year decision-making process for this team. Yeah. So you could potentially get a bridge quarterback. You could draft a project. One of the guys, you're 21, is Cole Payton. What can you tell us about him? Another 1-year starter. And again, that's a concern. And, Cole's interesting because he, coming out of high school in Nebraska, one of the reasons that he went to North Dakota State was they were losing Trey Lance. And it's like, okay, I'm going to have a chance to play. I'm going to have a chance to get on the field because Nebraska wanted him. I think Iowa State wanted him. But he goes to North Dakota State, and he just happens to be behind Cam Miller, who the Raiders drafted last year. I think he's on the Dolphins now. And Cam Miller started for 4 years. And so he was stuck as a backup. And I want to give him credit for sticking it out and being loyal. At the same time, I probably hurt himself because he would have transferred to, a MAC team or South Dakota State or another FCS team. I think he'd be further along in his development, but he's a 1-year starter, 13 starts. Now he went 12-1 in those starts. He was a really good player. He's fascinating because talking to scouts in the summer about him, they were like, hey, I think he could get an interesting tight end convert because he's a big athlete, good size. He's going to run the 4.5s. He should test well here. But we didn't have they used him in some packages just to get him on the field as more of like a Taysom Hill at North Dakota State. But they didn't see enough of him as a passer. Now that we have a full year of him as a starter, it's like, okay, yeah, he's a quarterback. But there's just a lot that he doesn't know. And he kind of is stuck in that middle ground where he needs reps to get better, but he's not ready to face NFL competition. So it's kind of, you're stuck in that no man's land where you wish he had one more year of eligibility, or you wish there was a minor league system, a G League that he could go to get those valuable reps. So that's where the tough part is with Payton, because he's clearly behind with his experience and it shows on the field. But man, he's talented, and you might have something if you're willing to invest in a project.
Jets have 4 picks in the top 44 overall. I do think they got some foundational pieces on the offensive side. I mean, we'll have to see what happens to the quarterback position, but the offensive line's really coming together. We'll have to see how the Breece Hall situation plays out. You have Isaiah Davis, you have Braylon Allen, you drafted Mason Taylor, you re-signed Jeremy Ruckert as your 2 tight end. You got a star receiver in Garrett Wilson. So there's some pieces there. Mm-hmm. With the 4 picks in the top 44, number 2 overall, number 16, that first pick in that second round as well, you have several holes on defense too.
Yeah.
How would you go about things here early?
Well, I think at 2 it's tough because you want to come away with a big time player at number 2. Need should not matter when you're picking number 2. It's just who's going to impact the roster in the best, most impactful way. That's what you want to come away with. And I think there's a case to be made. It could be an edge rusher. It could be Caleb Downs. I think the theme of this year's draft is going to be just draft good football players.
Yeah, right.
I think it's easy to get caught up in let's chase the high-end traits. Let's chase the potential. This draft, especially in the top 10, I think is about just draft good football players, whether that's an off-ball linebacker like Sonny Styles. Do you want to draft an off-ball linebacker that early? Probably not, but he's 6'4", 240, he's 21 years old and runs a 4.5. He's a freak. And to see his development the last few years at Ohio State has been phenomenal. Caleb Downs is just one of the best safeties I've ever evaluated as a prospect.
Wow.
The last 3 years played in 3 different systems, 3 different defensive coordinators, and he was lights out each year. And especially this year, watching it with what Patricia did with him, disguising, just a lot of different looks where, when before the snap, if it's one thing, if it's a run play, he's doing this. If it's a passing play, he's doing that. Like, you can only do that with a safety if he's extremely intelligent and understands the ins and outs of what the offense is doing and how that's going to affect what you're doing. And he can do it at a high level. He's also a big-time tackler and has the athleticism to cover. So Caleb Downs, do you see safeties drafted top 10 very often? No. Obviously, this team and Jamal Adams is one of the last times it happened.
Right.
Caleb Downs is a little bit different than that, and I think you feel like you're coming away with a Pro Bowl type of safety when you draft him, and again, just draft good football players, and I think that's what Caleb Downs is.
If you're the Jets, you said you just got to get the best player there at 2.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what the scheme is going to look like. We've seen Aaron Glenn run different schemes. Mm-hmm. When you're talking about Downs, when you're talking about Vel Reese, when you're talking about Ruben Bain, when you're talking about David Bailey, at this moment, it's kind of, and you have done an enviable task of doing mock drafts. At this moment, it's probably tough when you look at the Jets and say, that's the guy.
Right. Yeah, no, it is. And I think that's, a couple teams are like that, where we think they're going to do this, but maybe they might lean this way. And these teams need to look themselves in the mirror and say, hey, should we change what we're doing a little bit in order to draft a better player? And then whether that's Arvell Reese or Ruben Bain, whoever it may be for that team. But that's kind of this pass rusher group. They're all a little bit different. Arvell Reese is different than what David Bailey brings, and he's different than what Ruben Bain brings. And so I think part of it is the style of pass rusher you want. And do you feel like that the grades are similar between those 3 players? And do you even include Arvell Reese as an edge rusher? Or do you see him as more of an off-ball linebacker? To me, I think what makes him so effective is when he gets after the quarterback.
Yeah.
He can set an edge. He's violent. He's physical. But I want him dipping and ripping off the edge. And I think that somewhere between what Micah Parsons is and Jalen Carter, who was drafted 15 last year to the Falcons, he's somewhere between those 2 players in terms of his impact and what he can bring as an edge rusher. So, but to your point, we're kind of driving blind here in terms of where the exact scheme and so we would have a better idea of what exactly the type of player they could be looking for there. But I keep coming back, and the reason I had Arvell Reese in my mock draft at 2 is because I think he's the best player in the draft. And so, okay, if I'm going to tweak my scheme a little bit to make sure that I'm getting him in the most advantageous spots just to go make plays. And so it's should be exciting to watch him work out here in Indy.
16, we'll have to see how the board falls, of course. A lot of people think that might be the start of a receiver run, like right around there. You like Carnell Tate a lot.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot about Jordan Tyson and Mekhi Lemon as well. Do you think the Jets, depending on what happens there, stick with defense, or is this where you could see them make a transition to offense?
Yeah, I'd like to. I hope they keep an open mind.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think you should go into the draft thinking, all right, we have to draft a corner here. We have to draft. You know, hopefully they're able to address some of those key needs in free agency, and so they can go into the draft with a clean slate and say, let's draft who's just going to greatly impact our roster. And it could be wide receiver, and it'll be interesting with. I think Tate will be gone at that point. Lemon maybe just depends on because he's undersized, and a lot of teams look at him as a slot player, and so he just won't be for everybody in the top 15.
Yeah.
And then Jordan Tyson's interesting. I reported last night that he's not going to be doing.
Yeah, I saw that
at the combine. Still coming back from his hamstring, and that's the for lack of a better phrase, red flag with him because the tape says he's a top 10, 12 pick in this draft, but. Can he stay healthy?
And you got Denzel Boston out there as well.
Yeah, and Casey Concepcion.
Yeah,
Mark Cooper Jr. There were 17 receivers in my top 100, so
that's unbelievable.
Yeah, a lot, and there were probably 4 or 5 more that I was like, I hate to leave them out, but we gotta only so many spots, and so this is a pretty good receiver class, and they're all a little bit different what they offer. Denzel Boston's more of that true X, where Omar Cooper, you really like him in the slot, let him go create with the ball in his hands. His run after catch is outstanding. So I think that's we talked about with edge rusher and the different types and styles. Same thing with receiver. Obviously we know Garrett Wilson's a big part of what they're going to be moving forward, but aside from him. Do they want to go after that X? Do they want to go after more of a slot player? I think they have different options with the way they could attack it.
All right, let's get out of here with this one before we start reading the Beast in a couple weeks. Do you like the safety group?
I do. It's a deep group. Obviously, Caleb Downs at the top, but I do like, I think, second round, third round, really through the draft. Every round, there's at least 1 or 2 guys that are really talented. And even at 16, when Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, I think he's one of the reasons you really like him is how versatile he is. You want to be a nickel, he can do that. You want him to be a post safety, single high. I mean, he can do all these different things because he's a really good athlete. His cover athleticism's terrific. He comes downhill as a force player and is pretty good. He's gotten better and better against the run. So Dylan Thieneman, I think, is going to have a big week here with the way he tests, the way he moves, and going to help himself. He's already kind of in that borderline top 25 mix, but I think he's just only going to move up from here.
He was one of your prospects you can't wait to see at the NFL Combine. If you haven't read that at The Athletic, check it out. And also, get ready for the Beast. It's great seeing you, brother.
You too, man.